Hi guys, welcome to this video. My name is Mariel, and once again I am joined by the lovely Andrea. Oh my god, I didn't do that. I know I'm like, how many ways can you say Andrea? Andrea. There we go. Who, if you've watched our previous videos, is not only a good friend of mine and a yoga teacher, but the most phenomenal physio who I've been working with personally as I deal with issues with my lower back. And today we are excited to talk to you all about the glorious hip flexors, which I will start off by saying I didn't really know much about the hip flexors for the longest time. Again, I've been doing yoga for ages, and I just really never thought about how important they were, to be fair, until I started practicing my handstands. And my teacher started telling me about how important, especially because I wanted to press into a handstand, how important strengthening those hip flexors were, and we did bunches of just different types of exercises, which we'll do today as well, to strengthen the hip flexors. And lo and behold, and I'd love your thoughts on this, from working my hip flexors, practicing my handstand, I can now magically do the splits. And I think it's related. And I remember putting a post when I first did the splits on Instagram, and somebody commented, because I was saying, you know, I've always had tight hamstrings, and she actually told me, if you can forward fold in Paschimottanasana, your hamstrings aren't the problem. It's your hip flexor. And all of a sudden it all clicked. I'm like, God, I've been doing all this work on my hip flexors. Maybe strengthening them so much has allowed them to loosen up so that I can actually get into the splits now, which I think blew my mind. So that's my experience with hip flexors. They are very important. They will help you with your handstand and your splits. But please tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really nice example of how our body is very clever, and it has the ability to kind of sense what's going on within your muscular system and your joints, and ultimately your body is designed to protect you. Yeah. So it has loads of mechanisms. So, you know, pain is an amazing example of your body's way of giving you a warning system that something's not right. Yeah. But also the brain has the ability to kind of register what's going on via lots of receptors and things in your muscles and your tendons and your joints. It can tell what's going on, whether it's within the joint itself or stuff that's surrounding the joint. So if your body sort of rather if your brain is telling you that, okay, she's trying to do the splits, but she really doesn't have the strength to do that, we're not sure how she's going to get out of this position, often what happens is your body will increase the tone around the joint as a protective measure. Yeah. So it's your body's way of just preserving the joint, protecting it and preventing you from doing something that perhaps you're not ready for.
Yeah, that's fascinating, because especially in splits, I felt like for the longest time, and when I watch my students, it almost seems like we're clenching. Like we are scared of letting go, and that fear is just tightening everything up. You know, even when we hold on to blocks a little bit, it might loosen things up because we're not, I don't know, maybe holding everything in our hips. But I've definitely felt that. It took me a long time to be able to kind of let go, to go a little bit deeper, and I didn't realize I had to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. So absolutely, the stronger you get, the more your joints will actually allow you to use the available range that's there. Because ultimately, you know, there are exceptions to this, but most people have good joint range of motion, and we rarely actually utilise that full range. Yeah. If you take the shoulder and the hip as an example, they're ball and sockets, so they're designed to have lots of movement. And in our day-to-day life, you know, particularly when we spend so much time sitting or just standing, walking, we're really not using that whole range of motion. Yeah. So that means our body's not used to going there, and often when we ask it to, suddenly, you know, you've walked around all day or sat all day, and then you're like, let's do the splits.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, and it goes to show, literally, I've been trying to do the splits for well over 10 years, so I was clearly not clued into the right things. I've also read, and I don't know if it's true, but that the hip flexors are kind of like the main sort of fight or flight muscle, is that right? So kind of like stress triggers, does that influence your hip flexors?
Yeah, I mean, they're really connected into, so your hip flexors have attachments into your sacrum, so they connect with your sacral chakra, they connect into your lumbar spine, they connect into your legs as well, obviously, but you know, it's really a very kind of deep-rooted area.
Yeah.
And people will often say that, you know, when you're opening your hips, you're exposing lots of emotion.
Yeah.
And you know, people that are holding a lot of stuff in will have really tight hips.
Yeah.
And sure that there's some truth in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly, you know, I think the hip flexors are massively, massively overlooked, and that goes as well within physio. I think I'm sure a lot of you will have at some point had either a PT or a physio or an osteopath or someone say, it's all about the glutes.
It's all about the glutes. Yeah.
We're obsessed with the glutes, and I do, you know, the glutes are very important, and if they're not functioning well, then, you know, that can create lots of issues, and, you know, it's valid to some extent.
Yeah.
But the hip flexors need to, you know, they balance things out. They sit at the front of the hip, your glutes sit at the back and side. So your hip flexors have a major role in creating like a nice rounded stability, control, strength.
Yeah.
Again, coming back to that idea of it being a ball and socket, you want the whole hip to be surrounded by strength. So both the hip flexors, I mean, I can't not mention the adductors as well, which sit in your inner thighs.
Yeah.
Again, a big reason that most people can't do this, the sideways splits, wide splits, or frog pose is because what does anyone ever do to strengthen their adductors unless they're in the know or they've been prescribed something by someone? And a lot of the time it's just not letting go. It's amazing how, you know, I've been a physio for nearly 20 years, and a lot of what I know is through trial and error. You know, nobody told me everything I know. It's not in a textbook, and you know, I've made plenty of mistakes along the way.
That's how we learn. Yeah.
But what I realised is giving people stretches and foam rollering, and you know, do this for 20 minutes a day or what have you. Often there's very little result, and actually, particularly things like the hip flexors and the adductors, I've found that getting people to work them, so to contract and relax and lengthen and move that muscle, often gets a much, much better result. So I think it's kind of twofold. Some of it is actually, like I said, getting that kind of contract, relax mechanism happening so that the muscles aren't just kind of holding on, but also it's giving that strength so that the joint feels like it can open up safely without any repercussions or slips or tears. Ultimately, you know, that's the body's designed to protect the joint, but also the muscle. And if you overstretch, of course, you risk straining or tearing a muscle or a tendon. And so that's
that you can't repair, right? Like if you,
it takes a long time. It takes a long time, and it's, you know, best avoided. But that's, you know, our bodies are so clever that that's why it kind of kicks in to prevent you from over moving something which doesn't have the durability, if you like, to withstand it.
So what exercises would you recommend for this?
So the hip flexors, there's lots of great stuff in yoga which uses the hip flexors, but often they're the ones where people really, really struggle. So I've personally found that yoga itself has really helped me, but I think because I can understand the alignment and how to perhaps engage certain muscles, not in isolation, but more specifically, let's say, then I've been able to use yoga as a tool to get strong. Whereas I think if you are doing poses but not doing the alignment, the alignment isn't ideal, or you're using other muscle groups instead, which often we do, then you might not get that same benefit. So doing stuff off the mat can be really helpful, even if it's kind of doing maybe 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe not even that much before your yoga class. You kind of activate a switch on these muscles, and then maybe they're going to activate better in your practice. So the hip flexors, one that I've seen a lot online, seen a lot of other people doing, but because it's a great one, it's a pretty classic one, is the straight leg raise. I do see a lot of people doing it like this. However, I would recommend that you start against the wall.
So it's super important to make sure that you're always starting at the right level for you, because if something's too hard, of course you're going to revert back to your normal way of moving, and that's likely to be by using something else rather than the targeted muscle. So I would often say sit right back against the wall so that your back's already in the upright position you want it to be, so that you're not actually finding when you lift your leg leaning back, or you're kind of doing this, which then means that you're going to be engaging other muscles. And so using the hands to start with, because why not?
Do you want blocks at all?
I'm okay. But if you want to...
I will come join you because this is so good. All right. Brilliant.
So using the hands, but try to use them softly. You're trying not to... You want to keep a really straight posture so that you feel your shoulder blades pressing into the wall. But I would also say really engage your tummy too, because your rectus abdominis, the central kind of six-pack muscle, if you're lucky to have one of those, that works functionally very closely with your hip flexors. So in all these standing leg raise postures on the Navasana, stuff like that, the tummy and the hip flexors are working together. You want that nice balance of them both working and not relying on one over the other. So that's why, as an aside, I would always get people doing tummy strengthening stuff as well if they're struggling with it.
Oh, we'll do another video on that. No.
So really nice and tall, and then keeping your legs a little bit apart. The wider apart it becomes harder. So kind of hip width apart, and then just trying to keep your knee really locked out and straight so that you feel your heel lift a little bit off the floor. I would do one at a time. And then just lift the leg up. You're aiming to just clear it by. If you can just get like an inch, that's great. If you can get higher, amazing. And then see if you can keep that really straight spine so that you don't feel yourself slouch down. And you can obviously do whatever variations you like, but if you want to build up a bit of strength and endurance, I quite like to do reps on one side and then move on to the other rather than alternate, so you get less rest. So maybe you're just going up and down 10 times. So just.
Oh my god, feel the burn.
Physios can't count either, sadly.
I know where we're at, but that's 9, 10. And we're done. So I feel it, and I know that this is probably something that we all do. I feel it a bit in the quads. Is that normal?
That's absolutely normal because your quad is working to keep your knee straight. So as soon as you lock the quad out, your knee out, you're meant to use your quad to do that. But if you let the knee go soft, then you're actually going to find it's just a different action, and it's a lot harder to keep the spine straight. And you're going to be using a little bit more of your psoas, not using. When you keep the knee really nice and straight, you're going to be using your rec fem, which is one of your flexors, as well as your psoas.
Okay, good to know.
And then obviously, if you want to, you can then go wider with it. You're going to feel it working slightly differently. That really hard.
I know, so these are the ones that I've been told to do for handstand press. It's those wide.
And it's trying to not let your body fall at all. And then progressions coming back to that first one, just be no hands. And then move away from the wall so that you're not relying on that. Accept it. But can you feel how
you got that one around?
So really think of really engaging the tummy. I think often we sort of switch it on, but we don't switch it on enough. So really grip onto your tummy, and that should make a big difference as to how tall you can keep your spine. And it's the same as you say with handstands. We taught if you have a good teacher, we taught to really engage it, and for me that was the big game changer that made me go, okay, I need to engage it
that much.
And sometimes that's the case. It's like if we're switching on but just a little bit, then not much is going to happen. If we want to keep our body really strong, it's going to be a really strong engagement.
Yeah, for sure.
So hip flexing standing, I quite like to get people to do this partly for control and thinking about all the other stuff I talked about, like engaging through the glute med on your standing side as well, really engaging your core, trying to get that really nice upright posture. That can all make this quite a challenging exercise. Generally, anything where you're sitting down, there's less to think about. Whereas as soon as you stand up, there's so much going on. This can be quite challenging. So I would normally start holding on.
Always important to bring it back to a level where people can do it effectively and with really good quality movement. There's no point trying to do something really spangly and amazing if actually you're all over the place and you can't do it. So,
so we're coming over here.
Let's hold on. Let's do that. Hands in your positions, ladder. So we're going to do some 3-range hip flexion, but really trying to bring the knee nice and high. What's really important with this is that we don't start using your hamstring to come up. If you're using your hamstring, you're going to be drawing your heel towards your bottom. So you're going to be bending your knee by using your hamstring. So what we want to make sure is that all the work's happening through your hip flexor. So you're actually coming up to a 90-degree angle at your hip, but also a 90-degree angle at your knee. And I tend to say, try and think of drawing your foot up towards you as well, because that's more likely to engage your anterior chain rather than your posterior chain. Okay. So, because that's way too easy, I feel a little bit of resistance to that. So if you relax down, so I want you to really think of that nice tall position. So maybe you can step closer to the ladder. Make sure that it's just fingertip balance, you're not pulling yourself, you're using it to support you. And you're going to do exactly the same thing, but just with a little bit of resistance from the band. So pulling up. Good. Great. And then slowly coming down. Great. And again, so if you keep that knee, bring your heel forwards a little bit more, that's it. Try to really feel it in the front of your hip. And like with everything, if you don't feel it in the right place, then something with your technique just needs adjusting. Something else to be aware of is just that you're not hitching up to the side.
I know, I do that a lot, don't I?
Yeah.
So for people that would have a lovely person to hold on to their strap, could they just tie it
to anything behind you? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, lifting up my hip is something that I definitely do.
So think of creating a bit of dropping that right pelvis down a little bit, creating length through the side ribs. And it's challenging. It's challenging. You know, you can vary the resistance band to make it a little bit easier, but you can see how if you make it too hard, then it's not going to be effective. You need to really feel it in the right place. So, so again, and the heavier the load, the more it's going to become a strengthening rather than an activation exercise. So you might see some people in the gym doing this with the cable machines.
Right.
Against like a weight, a heavy weight.
Yeah. And then would you suggest once you've strengthened them to go straight into stretching at all, or just working?
It can be quite nice once you've switched everything on. It's nice to do some mobility stuff to warm up. Absolutely. I mean, I guess it depends the context of what you're about to do. If you're in a gym session, you're off. You know, you're not in the yoga studio. Then, definitely doing some nice hip mobility. So there's loads
just like a low lunge.
So if we're thinking about certainly the psoas, so the muscle which runs from your lumbar spine, sort of passes through the tummy and over the front of the hip. To get it stretching effectively, you need to tuck your tailbone under. And I see a lot of people just doing that, and you will get a stretch, but it's going to be going more into some of the other muscles over the front there. Plus, you're going to get lots of arching in your lower back. Yeah. So it's not that that's pointless or wrong, it's just that another good one would be this, which really, you should really feel it right over the front of the hip, really sort of isolated to the hip flexor. So if you tuck your tailbone under,
so is it less leaning forward? It's almost like
exactly.
Lift it up.
Stack your hip on your knee, and then really tuck your tailbone under, and you should feel a little, And then I like to add a bit of movement with my stretches, so I would suggest that you keep that tuck under. Imagine you're bringing your hip bone up and forwards, and just kind of rock forwards and then back. And it might be to try, see if you can really tuck under, and see if you can push upwards rather than downwards. That's it, And again, if you hold on to something, it makes you steadier, so some people might need that.
Balancing myself out.
And then there's loads of variations with that. You know, you can then turn it into a more circular movement. You can move more into your adductors as well.
Did you ever come down?
And yeah, you can do. You can do. You lose that kind of. You'll feel it as you come down. The stretch moves down the muscle. And again, that needs stretching too.
Yeah.
And of course, then you can lift up your back heel. You can.
Once you lift that back heel, what does it start going?
So that's really stretching your quad.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as you bend the knee, but one of your quads, your rec fem, is the hip flexor. So that's once, I think as long as you're also stretching that upper bit of the muscle, then it's great to do that as well.
Cool. Good stuff. All right, guys, I think that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for many more, and we'll see you in the next one.